Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today, we are diving into the book Wisdom Takes Work. This explainer covers Ryan Holiday's fourth, and actually the final, installment in his really acclaimed Stoic Virtues series. Now, if you've been following along with us, you know the earlier books explored courage, discipline, and justice. So Holiday's closing the loop here with what he argues is the most elusive, yet foundational trait of them all, wisdom. The subtitle, Learn, Apply, Repeat, well, that is essentially the thesis of the entire book. See, wisdom is not some magical gift you're just born with. No, it's a lagging indicator of years of deliberate, kind of unglamorous work.
To kick things off, we really need to completely dismantle a very modern myth. Society today often equates raw intelligence, high IQs, speed, massive information consumption, with being wise. But Holiday's book draws a super sharp line between the two. Intelligence? That's just raw processing power. Wisdom, on the other hand, is characterized by restraint, deep experience, and nuance. The book makes a really compelling case that intellect without moral character or self-restraint isn't just lacking. It is actually incredibly dangerous. Think about it. You can be super knowledgeable, highly articulate, and really powerful, and still make utterly foolish choices.
Which brings us to a pretty pointed question. Is hot take culture killing wisdom? The book diagnoses our current era as one that actively rewards fast reactions, the performance of intelligence, and loud tribal certainty. I mean, if you pause to think or admit you just don't know enough yet, you are often punished or totally ignored by modern algorithms and workplace cultures. Holiday argues that true wisdom requires exactly the opposite of what our culture demands right now. It requires slowing down, deliberate hesitation, and really resisting the pull of that endless outrage cycle.
So Holiday's central thesis frames wisdom as the master virtue, upon which literally everything else depends. When the other Stoic virtues operate in a vacuum, things go sideways fast. Courage without wisdom, that simply becomes recklessness. Discipline, unguided by wisdom, turns into rigidity or even cruelty. And justice without wisdom rapidly devolves into empty self-righteousness. Wisdom is really the stabilizing force that helps a person identify what a situation actually requires in reality.
And this dynamic leads to a really crucial warning. Capability without prudence is dangerous. For anyone listening who is ambitious or stepping into positions of leadership, this is absolutely vital. Knowing exactly how to execute an action is entirely different from knowing whether you should take that action in the first place. The book stresses that having power, influence, or money simply magnifies the consequences of our choices. Because a bad judgment at the top reaches so many more people, acquiring power requires more radical humility, not less. To see what this prudence actually looks like in practice, Holiday profiles some pretty amazing historical models. Take Michel de Montaigne, who's actually the central guide in this book. Montaigne was born into massive privilege, but his father deliberately arranged for his godparents to be entirely destitute. Why? So Montaigne would feel bound to the poor. He was raised among peasants in his early years specifically to step completely outside of his privileged bubble and learn baseline human equality through lived experience. The book uses Montaigne to show that wisdom demands we escape our isolated environments to truly understand the world. Every mistake he made was treated as a teaching moment, proving that wisdom requires grounded, real-world empathy.
And that grounded empathy is exactly what we see in Abraham Lincoln, who offers an absolute masterclass in interpersonal wisdom. He famously kept his political rivals close, the proverbial team of rivals, and would even appoint harsh critics who actively disliked him just to ensure he wasn't trapped in an echo chamber. He listened intently to them before making a move. Good judgment, as Holiday points out, isn't about instantly declaring a position or winning an argument. It is about quiet reflection, collaborating, and actually hearing what others know before you react. Lincoln prioritized understanding the strongest version of his opponent's views over just trying to defeat them.
But what happens when that humility disappears? Well, the book provides several cautionary case studies of what Holiday calls the Midas trap. That is, when brilliant people begin to believe they are always the smartest person in the room. He neutrally outlines modern figures, including a pointed critique of Elon Musk, to illustrate how first principles brilliance can degrade over time. The author argues that when highly capable people surround themselves with yes-men, develop toxic information diets, and lose their intellectual humility, their ungrounded brilliance can lead to massive hubris and catastrophic choices.
Now, we do need to impartially address the book's divided reception here, because this critique of modern figures has sparked a real debate among readers. On one hand, readers heavily praise the book's accessible style and its seamless blend of ancient philosophy with modern case studies. A lot of people call it a fantastic capstone to the series. But, on the other hand, critics argue that taking overt political stances and passing confident judgment on live, unresolved controversies sits kind of awkwardly in a book that is actively preaching detachment, nuance, and the avoidance of certainty. It's a really fascinating tension within the text itself.
Regardless of where you fall in that debate, the book offers a very powerful framework for personal growth. It asks, how do you practice self-education outside of school? Holiday frames life as the agoge, the ancient Spartan training ground. The whole premise is that wisdom is a daily, active discipline, not just a passive byproduct of getting older. You have to actively choose to remain a perpetual student long after formal schooling ends.
So how exactly do you do that? Well, it comes down to 4 unglamorous, highly actionable habits for cultivating character. First, talk to the dead, which is Holiday's term for the deep, active reading of books to converse with minds across centuries. Second, aggressively question your own assumptions and beliefs. Third, train ferocious, unbroken focus in a world that is just full of distractions. And fourth, make it a habit to listen much more than you talk. These are the daily reps required to escape your echo chamber.
One of the most practical tools for maintaining that focus is building what we might call a second brain. The book highlights the iconic writer Joan Didion and her lifelong habit of keeping a notebook. See, Didion didn't just passively experience life. She approached the world through rigorous, critical observation. By writing things down, she externalized her thoughts. This habit allows you to revisit, synthesize, and actually build upon your knowledge over time, rather than just letting experiences wash over you.
We see the exact same habit in a completely different context with General James Mattis, who maintained what he called a personal book of wisdom. A commonplace book like this is absolutely critical. It allows you to extract lessons from your reading and your direct experience, test those lessons against reality, and then apply them skillfully the next time you face a challenge. It proves that wisdom is not just information storage, right? It's a tool for better perception and better decisions out in the field.
Which brings us to what we can call the Marcus Aurelius rule. Just imagine the most powerful man in the world, a literal Roman emperor, still carrying his books through the streets to go study with his philosophy teacher. The lesson here is simple and direct. Your status, your power, your credentials, or your age are never an excuse to stop learning. True wisdom is realizing the work never actually ends.
Of course, to keep learning, you have to navigate what Holiday calls the sirens. These are the modern traps that actively sabotage wisdom and make otherwise incredibly intelligent people stubbornly blind. We're talking about the nearly 200 cataloged cognitive biases, the comfort of tribalism, consuming bad information diets just to confirm what we already believe, and the outright refusal to change your mind. When people become emotionally invested in their identity, updating their worldview feels like a defeat. These sirens are exactly what we have to guard against every single day.
So how do we fight those sirens? Well, with empathy as a form of intellectual rigor. Empathy is so often dismissed as this soft sentimentality, but Holiday clarifies that it is actually a vital strategic tool. It's the rigor required to step out of your own head and understand the unique lived reality, the Umwelt, or the distinct sensory world of someone else. If you replace the urge to win an argument with the aim of understanding the absolute strongest version of another person's view, you become so much harder to fool.
Let's bring all of this together into a system drawn straight from the book's subtitle. 1. Learn deliberately, escaping your bubble and reading deeply. 2. Apply intentionally, testing those lessons in the real world and listening to feedback. And 3. Repeat. Maintain a rigorous evening reflection where you review what you assumed, what actually happened, and what you will do differently tomorrow. It's a continuous, repeating loop. You get wiser, sure, but you were never fully wise.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to test your own intellectual humility. Ask yourself right now, what core belief might you need to change your mind about? True certainty should be a signal to investigate, not a reason to stop thinking. Take some time to reflect on that question today and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.